Prepare to be captivated by the business story of the week, hosted by me, Shaahin. Join us on a journey through the twists and turns of entrepreneurial triumphs and setbacks. Immerse yourself in the narrative and witness the magic that turns dreams into reality. This is Business Story of the Week. All right, so for those of you guys joining us right now, this is another audition for hosts for Business Story of the Week. And today we've got Ryan Atkinson. So if any of you guys are wondering why I am being interviewed on Business Story of the Week rather than interviewing others on Business Story of the Week, is because this is an audition. But if this goes the way that I think it's going to go, we'll probably end up broadcasting it, because Ryan is a podcasting pro and he is going to be an awesome host for Business Story of the Week amongst our other hosts that we have going on. So I want you guys to listen up and let's enjoy the show.
Yes. Well, welcome everyone to Business Story of the Week. And we are going to interview the guru behind it, and Cheyene on the podcast. He's a serial entrepreneur that has an amazing story. He was the creator of a herbal ecstasy, which was a nootropic pill that was 100% legal and sparked the smart drug movement. Shaahin made millions on it. The best part, he was only 15 years old when he did it. Now he's the founder of Podcast Cola, which is the largest podcast promotion agency in the world. He's published books. He's an Amazon expert, filmmaker, and total badass. His journey spans more than 30 years and $1 billion in revenue. But we're going to cover all of that today in 20 minutes and talk about the power of podcasting. Welcome, Shaahin, to the podcast. So excited to have this conversation.
I am psyched to be on.
And I talked about it a little bit, but 15 years old, you make a herbal ecstasy pill, which is so cool. When I was 15 years old, that is not what I was doing. So take me to this moment just to build a foundation of who you are as a person. How at 15 years old did you think to start this?
Look, we came to this country as immigrants. I came to the United States in the early 80s with my family and me in tow, thinking, hey, here we are, land of opportunity. Turns out the land of opportunity may not have been as friendly to all of its immigrant friends during that time, and we had to struggle. And I learned very quickly that I wanted to achieve wealth and success. And I learned that the best way to do that would be through the power of storytelling, which brings me full circle to what I do now over at Podcast Cola. But back then, I started a company as a teenager, left home early, created over $1 billion in revenue, all with a magic little pill. Anybody that's interested, I do have a book, shameless plug, called Billion, How I Became King of the Thrill Pill Cult. It's available on Amazon. I think I get a whole $2 when people buy it. It's available on Audible. And it goes through my story. It chronicles the story of herbal ecstasy and me. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd be curious. So you came over as an immigrant, and I think that's how a lot of great founder story really begin. And you said you, at a young age, you wanted wealth, you wanted success. Was that part because you're an immigrant trying to prove yourself, or like where did that desire come from?
Yeah, all of that. But it just looks good, and being poor really sucks. I remember I didn't really eat at like a decent restaurant until I was like well in my teens. I didn't even know you could do that. I didn't know you could go sit down and get a menu and order. I mean, we ate at home, right? Sometimes we ordered pizza, but really we ordered at home. You know, we ate at home. We ate food at home, right? It was like what my mom cooked. The clothes that we had were clothes that people left behind at a dry cleaners that my dad worked at. So when you come from those type of humble beginnings, you have a part of you that either hates everything about the world and becomes really like tied up in a mentality of lack, or you change the way that you think and you move towards abundance.
Yep.
And I remember reading books like Think and Grow Rich and The Trick to Money is Getting Some by a friend of mine, Stuart Wilde, who later became a friend of mine, Tony Robbins. And I started to think to myself, I want abundance. I want wealth. And the path to that is the path of being able to master the art of influence and storytelling.
And I think that's what like every great entrepreneur has, is that storytelling and influence ability. But I think it's super interesting that you say like how much your younger years shaped you. I was just reading a book, Rich Paul's memoir, who's the agent for like LeBron James, Draymond Green, all these NBA superstars, and he grew up in like inner city Cleveland. And he just says like every day was a grind. Like you never know like your next meal is gonna come. You never know you're walking on the corner. You never know if someone's gonna rob you, and that like just shapes you as a young age, and even it influences you as an entrepreneur. Just because there's always something lurking around the corner. I'm sure as you were building your first company, you experienced that as well.
Yeah, totally. Look, no matter what you do, nothing is ever going to be all smooth sailing.
Yeah.
Life includes obstacles. And the challenge ahead, the journey, which, by the way, is the destination. I tell that to young people all the time. They're out there chasing money, chasing girls, whatever it is that they're chasing, thinking that there is some destination that they're going to arrive at, not understanding that all those who came before them understood that the journey is the success. When you look at Bezos, you look at Steve Jobs, you look at Elon Musk,
Mm-hmm.
and they are deep into their journey. Why? Because that is the destination. That's why they are so excellent. They're not trying to achieve some level of money or success or chase some financial outcome. What they're trying to do is to chase excellence. And that's what I tell people to do all the time.
Yeah, chase excellence is like such a big thing, and like reading Jobs's biography and like Musk's biography that I just read, their expectations were so high, like their level of excellence was incredibly high. And when you have that and you don't waver away from that, that's when you create companies like Apple, like Tesla, and that is just like it is the power of setting your expectations really high and then not settling away from anything from that.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, I think setting your expectations high is important,
Yeah,
but you also need to ship. A
yeah,
lot of the problem with young entrepreneurs is that they don't ship.
mm-hmm.
They get caught up in all these, what do you call it, paralysis of production, and they just overthink things and they
Yeah,
don't ship. And while they're overthinking things, somebody else comes up with a minimum viable product, beats them to the market, fixes the problem live as they're going while the product's on the market, the service is on the market, and they're sitting back going, holy smokes, what happened? What happened to my company? What happened to my startup? So you have to be able to think fast. You have to be able to
yep,
make decisions fast. And that's what I did in my time. But more importantly than all of that, you have to be able to tell a better story, which
yep.
brings me to podcasting and why what we're doing right now is one of the most important, one of the most impactful trends that we're going to see in the next 100 years. You had the television, you had the radio, you had print, and now we've got podcasts.
Yes, and I want to talk about your podcasting journey because you have done like amazing things. You've been a president, founder, inventor of Vapor. You were director of film studio. You started Accelerated Intelligence in 2008, and then in January 2010 comes and you start Podcast Cola. This is super early in the podcast days. Like 2010, like Joe Rogan was just getting started. And now everyone thinks about podcasts like, oh, everyone has a podcast, which isn't true. But I'm just curious, like, how did you identify in 2010 to ship so early and identify that this is the next big trend for the next 100 years?
Yeah, I like to tell people there's things in life that you're going to be okay at.
Yeah.
There's things that you're going to be good at, and those are even less. And there's going to be things that you're going to be great at, and that's going to be even less. I can count the things I'm great at on one hand. But one thing that I am really great at is finding people who are great at the things that I suck at.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things that I'm really good at is spotting trends. I
Mm.
spotted the trend with vaporization by inventing the first digital vaporizer. I spotted the trend with the whole smart drug movement, the nootropics movement with herbal ecstasy. We created over $1 billion in revenue, well documented throughout the 90s. And the thing that I know about podcasting is that legacy media is slowly dying. It's giving you its
Mm.
death throes, right? Who watches TV anymore? Nobody. Everybody turns on Netflix.
Yep.
We want our content on demand and we want it tailor made for us. We want to know the specific thing we want to know. And we don't want to spend an hour watching commercials and ads and a million
Yep.
different things. We want it all, and we want it all for free, and we want it all now. And podcasts are the most amazing way to do that. I was telling somebody today that I needed to fix something around the house. And again, not one of the 5 things I'm good or great at, actually. One of the things I totally suck at, but I had to fix something. Am I going to go sit and watch TV for a few hours to figure out how to do that? Even find a channel that does it? No, it's impossible. Radio, forget about it. But I go on YouTube. I find a podcast where the guy is a specialist at fixing these things, and he walks me through it. Now I get to know him. I'm like, this is
Yep.
super cool. I sign up for his mailing list. I sign up for his newsletter. Now I'm in his ecosystem. You think if he's going to sell a book, I'm going to be interested in buying this guy's book. If he's got a high ticket course, I want to buy his course. If he's consulting and I need to hire a team to come here and fix something, then I'm going to go with one of his consultants because he is a trusted brand. And I tell people about this all the time. When you start selling, you got to push a lot harder, right? And everybody needs to become a salesman. I've said this many times about what they do.
I agree.
People are so scared of being a used car salesman, but they don't understand what sales is. Sales is not being a shady used car salesman on the corner trying to sell somebody a hack car. Rather, what it is being an influencer, using the elements of influencer and pulling people to you and your vision. And there's no better way to do that than through story. And there's no better way to tell your story than podcasts. They are long form. They live forever. People will be listening to them while they're taking the kids to soccer, while they're taking the kids to their karate class, jujitsu class, while they're at the gym working out, while they're in their car in traffic. And guess what, Ryan? They've been in the car with you for an hour now. They're your buddy. They know you. It builds trust. It establishes trust. And now, when you go to somebody who you trust, the sales process is easy. You don't get all those crazy objections. You don't get the value objections and the let me talk to my wife objection. Because now you're talking to somebody who you trust. And that's what podcasts do. They build trust and deliver very highly targeted niche information to your target audience.
And that's what I think is so powerful about podcasting. Is one of the podcasts that I listen to is 30 Minutes to President's Club. I know when I get on there, I know exactly what I'm going to listen to. I know exactly that they're serving like the needs that I need, and I'm just building trust. If I ever went to them for a consultation, they don't need to sell me on their value proposition. I've listened to 30 hours of what they've had to say, and I know that they're a trusted advisory in there. So like you said, it is building it. To start, it's a one-way relationship where you're just listening to them, but over time, you're just building that trust in their minds where it's comfortable saying like, oh, I want the product or the service that you have.
Yeah, right. It's what Seth Godin calls pull marketing as opposed to push marketing. In the old days, before podcasts, we would push stuff down people's throats. We would be like, hey, man, I know you're watching the Super Bowl. You want a beer? You'd be like, dude, I'm just watching the Super Bowl. Okay, cool. How about now? Do you want a beer? Do you want a beer? Do you want a beer? And eventually people would go, you know what? I need a beer. And they would sell beer. But that died. And now the way to sell is through trust, through social proof, through authority, the elements of influence that Robert Cialdini talks about, Professor Cialdini talks about in his book, Influence.
Great
But
book.
what we have to understand now is that the market is changing. The market is shifting. And the most powerful way for you to get your message out is on other people's podcasts. Why do I say other people's podcasts? You think, Shaahin, I should have my own podcast. Absolutely. But if you look at this guy, Alex Hormozy, who's making a lot of noise right now, amazing marketer, unbelievable what he's done out there in the marketing, the digital marketing space. Everybody's a buzz about this guy, Alex Hormozy. If you look at his podcast, you'll notice something interesting. And it's the key, the master key, the dirty secret that podcasters don't want you to know. I'm waiting for you to ask me what it is.
Oh, what is it? I thought we were waiting for the ball to drop. Yeah. What is it?
There you go. Well, I was building tension, so that's good too. The master key is that you can make your own podcast and put it out there. But unless you're somebody who's a big name and has a big budget behind you, what you'll hear is crickets. Tumbleweed City, Ryan. But there's a secret, and that's this. You can borrow other people's audience and bring them over to your show. And you do that by podcast guesting, by being
Yep.
a guest on other people's podcasts. Now, I did this by forming this company, Podcast Cola. At first, I was doing it for myself. I thought, man, I want to get a major motion picture film deal based on my book, Billion, How I Became King of the Thrill Pill Cult. I wrote this bestseller, and I thought, man, I want a film deal. So I started doing podcasts, and I realized, hey, it's cool because of who I am. I started getting shows, going out to my contacts, but I was like, man, there's a lot of shows that aren't getting back to me. Why? Reputation. Nobody wants a guy who's selling his own house,
Yep.
right? People want to deal with people who are represented by professionals. So I started an agency called Podcast Cola. Anybody that's interested, look us up. And what we do is we specialize in getting people booked on shows based on our reputation. We build out a whole pitch deck for you. We tell your story in a compelling way. We extract those areas of interest, and then we get you on other people's shows. It's the highest ROI activity that entrepreneurs can do right now is guesting on other people's shows.
Yeah, and like, why is that? Because is it because you're hacking into these different communities, getting your words out? Or let's dive a little bit deeper into that. Why is there such a strong ROI in going on to people's shows? Can you elaborate on that a little bit more?
So if you're doing it yourself, there's a lot of good shit out there.
Yeah.
Why would I listen to you, Ryan? I know you're a good-looking young man, but there's a lot of those out there, and you're dynamic and interesting and all that. But I got an hour. Am I going to listen to you, or am I going to listen to Joe Rogan?
Yeah.
Am I
Joe
going to
Rogan.
listen to you, or am I going to listen to Patrick Bet-David? Am I going to listen to you, or am I going to listen to Alex Hormozy? Those guys are masters, right? You're good, but they're masters.
Mhm.
I have a limited amount of time, but there are people who've built up communities. There are people who have built podcasts up from the ground up and spent hundreds of thousands, tens of thousands, millions of dollars building their podcasts up already. So if you could guest on their shows and be a compelling, dynamic person, and we show 5 key tips. Anybody who's interested, you can reach out below at podcastcola.com for a free 15-minute consult, and I'll share the 5 tips with you. But if you use these 5 key elements when you're guesting on these shows, you have a 100% chance of borrowing their audience and bringing it over to you. And now your show grows in 2 ways. One, it grows by you putting out content. It boosts your search engine optimization. All those words become searchable because you're going to be putting them up as blogs on the back end of your site. But it also grows by that person putting it out on their platform. And you're going to take that content and recirculate it. You're going to cut it into clips. And before you know it, your content is everywhere. And you don't even have to produce a single show.
It is so cool. Like, if you get on like a podcast and the host has 30,000 followers, 40,000 followers, and they post it, all of a sudden you have 30,000, 40,000 eyes just peering onto your content. Oh, who is this person? What podcast did they produce? And so that is really the power of being on other people's shows, and you're alluding it to it in a perfect sense.
Yeah, and another thing I like to talk about oftentimes that people don't understand is that podcasting is tactical. You know how many law offices I've talked to today that are using podcasts tactically? I spoke to a law office the other day, a big law firm, and they have 4 podcasts. And I'm going, okay, why would a big law firm, they charge $1,250 an hour for their attorneys, right?
Wow.
Minimum $150,000 retainer to work with them. Why do they have a podcast? Do they really need to be heard? Is it that somebody is going to hear them on somebody's on their show and download their podcast and going to be a client? Maybe, but I'll tell you what it is. They want to get through to clients. They want to get through to the people who can become their clients. If you cold call them and like, hi, I'm Joey the attorney, right? I want to sell you my service. They go, buddy, get in line. There's 50 people wanting to sell me service. But if they get them and they say, hey, I would love to have you be a guest on my show, guess what? They're using podcasts tactically. They're talking to that person for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. Now they know that person. And at the end of that 3 hours, they're able to say, hey, you know what? I think our law firm might be a great fit for you. Would you be interested in me taking you for lunch and showing you what we can do and what we've done for other clients? And they're getting business left and right, hand over foot. For hand over foot? Do you say hand over foot? I don't know. Sometimes I forget that I speak English. But either way, they're getting a lot of business through that.
Yeah.
So using podcasts, being a guest on other people's podcasts, networking with the community of podcast hosts is a way to supercharge your business. And I've seen it over and over and over again. People doubling, tripling, quadrupling the amount of revenue that they do.
Yeah, and that really just brings it full loop into once you start having people on your podcast, once you start being other people, you're building that trust into people's mind, and that's when you're closing these huge clients and you're skipping in front of 49 other law firms for services. But Shaahin, that will wind us down for today. We talked a lot of the power of podcasting in here and why people should do it. But where can people connect with you and learn a little bit more about Podcast Cola?
Yeah, so it's going to be really simple. Either get my book on Amazon. I think it's 99 cents. So I'm sure I make a whole 12 cents on that. You can get Podcast Famous on Amazon platform. It's available Kindle or Amazon. Or if you want a free 15-minute consultation, if you are interested in being booked and featured on great podcasts like this one, go to podcastcola.com. That's podcastcola.com and book a 15-minute free consult with us. And I'd love to get on the phone. I love meeting new people. I love talking to people. I love hearing people's story. And I'm excited to talk to you to see if I can get you booked on some podcasts. So, Ryan, thanks so much for having me on the show.
Thank you.
All right. So that was awesome. Guys, let me know what you think about Ryan and how you think Ryan did. And if you think he's going to be an awesome host, I think Ryan did great. But take a look and let me know what you guys think.
All right, so here's the thing. We try to get a little bit better every day, but we can't do it without you. So if you like the video, make sure to like and subscribe below. And if you have any comments, just leave them in the space under.